Hi everyone, I'm Kieran Clare, journalist with Australian Property Investor magazine, and today we're talking to Jonathan Millar, who's the director at JDMA Property Consulting and Valuations. And Jonathan's going to give us his take on the Kelvin Grove and Herston market and a bit of an overview about Brisbane generally. So thanks for joining us, Jonathan.
Thanks very much for having me, Kieran.
Terrific, it's good to have you here. So look, let's start off with Kelvin Grove and Herston. How do you rate those suburbs for property investors?
Look, I rate those two suburbs fairly highly. They're really good suburbs for investment in my mind. They're within close proximity to Brisbane City, the QUT, Royal Brisbane Hospital, good schooling in Kelvin Grove College, as well as being close to the cafes, shops and restaurants of the urban village. And for me, there's several unit developments that are under construction, quite a lot that have been constructed. And with property being on the rise, I believe there's some real opportunities within these locations. Certainly, if we look to Herston firstly and its rental population, it's averaging at about 55%. And if we look at Kelvin Grove, it's even higher at 60%. So certainly there is some real understanding why there would be high demand for investors in this area, because obviously what they'd like to know is that they're not going to have or have at least minimal vacancy in these I suppose in anywhere where they're going to invest. So these rates are very high.
Oh, terrific. Are there particular property types that you think investors should look for?
Well, certainly, if we look at the median dwelling price at Herston, my research shows me it's averaging at about $880,000, and for Kelvin Grove, $640,000. So these sort of dwellings are probably just out of reach for the standard investor. So if we then look to Kelvin Grove, the median unit price is at $457,000, and Herston's about $325,000. So there's a lot more affordability. So I therefore have to really recommend unit and apartments for investment. There is a fair difference between those two. A lot of the unit stock, I guess, in Herston is a bit older and of that older brick construction, and I guess Kelvin Grove really is more the newer unit development within close proximity to the urban village. Vacancy rates continue to remain low in these areas due to the student population and the proximity to the city. Certainly, if they were to be purchased, I would recommend that owners would try and get the leasing period from February to February, because a lot of the students do tend to want that to head back home at the end of the year, and that's just a preferable time frame for me.
That's good advice too. You always want to try and maximise your rental return where you can, and years certainly appear to be cyclical.
Yes, very much so, especially in these areas, I believe.
Yeah, and you mentioned the village, and we touched on it quite a bit in our article. How do you rate that as a location for investors, considering its new unit production in a fairly well established suburb?
Look, it has grown a lot over the years. Certainly, the village is growing with a number of developments, and there's quite a considerable mix of designs, quality and aspects. I think every investor should do their due diligence and research to make sure they get the pick of the bunch. Some units in there will have, I guess, views of Victoria Park Golf Course. Some of them, depending on their positioning within the building, will have views of the city. And for me, some of these things can be a real X factor for a little bit of extra grade. But certainly do your research there. Look, like most suburbs these days, there is a mix up in the village of affordable housing, and but certainly with all the shops and the cafes and the Woolworths supermarket, I believe the urban village really should be desirable to investors. And obviously tenants are looking for all these facilities. There's other things there such as good transport, there's pools, there's gymnasiums, daycare centres, even banking facilities. So look, all of these things are what both investors and the tenants are looking to have. And so therefore, I think the village should continue to get stronger as the years go on.
Yeah, and as you said, it seems to be a case of really do your due diligence and make sure that the product type's going to suit your investment profile, I'd imagine.
That's definitely the way. And just look, it's like anything, buying shares or property, doing your research is very important.
Yeah, terrific. Look, Herston and Kelvin Grove, travelling into the future, how do you see things panning out for them in the next, in the sort of medium term?
Oh, look, with these two suburbs, their proximity to the university, the Royal Brisbane Hospital, as I mentioned earlier, and the city, look, these areas are certainly expected to grow in value in line with the rest of Brisbane, if not at a higher rate. There's 7,200 people employed at the Royal Brisbane Hospital. There's 20,000 students and about 2,000 staff, I believe, at QUT, Kelvin Grove campus. So really, with these sorts of numbers, you can see there's going to be strong demand for rental properties, and therefore should be good competition for this type of property investment.
Yep, and there's a lot of talk about Brisbane going into 2014, following on from the Sydney and Melbourne run at the moment. How are you seeing things panning out next year?
Oh, look, I've had a lot of chat with my peers about this, and it's really asked of a valuer and people involved in property quite a lot of the time. We're not expecting the booms of 2003 and 2007 to be really seen again, but with the high confidence levels, I guess low interest rates, and the current level of activity we're seeing in our office, we really expect that the effect on property is seeing prices continue to be pushed up, albeit gradually, over the next 12 to 18 months.
Well, look, terrific information, and it's always great to get a valuer's perspective on these things. Thanks for your time today, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Cheers.